and thanks for joining us today. We get kind of the backstage pass here before the show begins. So glad you're here. We're going to talk through a lot of different interesting financial planning topics today. But logistically, for those of you who are signing in right now, realize there's a way to communicate with us, and that's by using the chat feature. There's a questions feature that allows you to go in and ask questions and communicate with us throughout the presentation. So certainly use that. It's a lot more fun for us too, to be able to interact with you throughout the presentation. So just glad you're here, and definitely use that tool as we go. We also have people coming in on Facebook Live. So those of you who are listening on Facebook, thanks for joining us. And again, you get a little bit of an inside peek here before the official presentation gets started.
To watch us drink our beverages.
Yes, exactly. Hope you're having a good day. Beginning of summer after Memorial Day. So we get into a little bit of a different mode here at Keystone too. So obviously people are running around enjoying their families and everything. We're still here, we're still working for you, but we found that kind of between Memorial Day and Labor Day, a lot of our clients are running around and traveling and camping and all kinds of stuff. So looks like we're having different people sign in as we speak. So we're going to give it a few minutes and get started right at the top of the hour.
And if you see us looking over here, that's because that's where our question and answer panels and chat panels are on a monitor over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely want to interact with you, throughout the presentation. That's one of the benefits you have if you're listening live, of course, is that you get to interact with us, you get to ask questions. But we do find that a lot of people watch these after the fact. So that's certainly available as well. This is being recorded. Best place to find that is just on our YouTube page. It's easy to find. Just go to keystonefinancial.com, and then our social media links are right at the top of the page.
Yep.
So you can click on YouTube, go out there and listen to all of our past presentations. You could also easily share those. So that's great, especially if there's somebody that you think should have been here today. They should have been listening to this, or maybe they had something else going on. They just couldn't make it live. That's a great way to just share the content with them.
Got a few more minutes here till noon.
Yeah, for those of you who are signing in, we can still see people popping in, but locate that chat feature. That's how you can communicate with us. Like to have questions along the way, and we'll try to catch some of those along the way. Interest of time, sometimes we'll have to move along, but at the end we'll catch any of those that we missed. So I'm just glad you're here. Glad that everybody's joining us today. Got about one more minute. For those of you who are on Facebook, thanks for joining us live. And you get kind of a backstage pass here before we officially start recording and put the content out on our YouTube page later today. So we'll give people a few more seconds here to get signed in, and we will get going. All right, and people are still signing in right now. Again, for those of you who are joining us on Facebook or via Zoom, however you're joining us, so thanks for joining us today. We've got a great topic that we're going to be covering. Locate that chat feature and interact with us. We definitely like to have chat and questions and things along the way. If we're looking up, by the way, that's because we're looking at your stuff. We're looking at your communications. So know that that's going to be coming as well. All right, welcome everybody to Women and Money, taking charge of your financial future. I'm Josh Nelson, a certified financial planner and the founder and CEO of Keystone Financial Services. And I've got a very special guest with me today. You're used to seeing Jeremy on here, right? But I've got a special guest, Sarah Nelson, who is our Director of Compliance and Oversight. And we also happen to be married.
Yes. Well, like Josh said, usually Jeremy's here, but right now he's behind the scenes running the tech and producing the show. So it's a little bit different for him, but we figured being that it's Women in Money, why not have a female perspective? So like Josh said, my role is compliance, but I've been in the industry for 19 years, almost half my life. So I have a lot of perspective on, different situations that I've seen and things like that. So I originally got my start back right out of high school at a bank and worked my way up all the way from teller to running the compliance department there, and then moved in 2011 to the financial planning world, and then been here ever since. But same thing, started, making appointments at a front desk, opening accounts, and now director of compliance for the firm. So lots of experience, and hopefully I can add some value or some opinions or stories or things like that to what Josh is sharing today.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, over the years, and especially starting as a teller, that's how I started too. Some of you may not know that actually in the industry originally, but I mean, probably thousands and thousands of interactions you've had with different people and family situations and
Right.
dynamics. So yeah, definitely a lot that you bring to the table, I think, as far as that experience.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, so glad you're here. But yeah, again, this is kind of a unique topic today because it really is focused in on women. And as we go, even if you're a man, that's not that you won't get anything out of this today. There will be a lot of great financial planning topics, but there are some planning issues that are kind of unique to women. And so we're going to dig into that here in just a moment. If my slides advance. We might need a mouse click. There's more than one way to skin the cat here.
Try it again. Our clicker is malfunctioning.
So this is how you know that we're live. Maybe it's frozen.
Try it again.
All right, technical difficulties.
Jeremy is fixing.
There we go. All right, sounds good. So you knew that we were live. So today we're going to talk about women and money. Again, charting the financial course. Today, it's critical that women know how to save, invest, and plan. And of course, it's important that everybody know how to do that, but it's important that, both sides of the equation, right? Both men and women,
Right.
Because there are some unique issues, right, that are applicable to women.
And I think what we've seen just, over my 20 years, Josh, almost 30 years, you might not think it's shifted, but it really has shifted in our world. Back in 2004, 2005, when couples would come into the bank, it really was just, the husband walked in, he sat at the desk, because I was a personal bank for a while. He sat at the desk and he made all the decisions, did all the things, signed all the paperwork, and the wife just kind of sat there or she wasn't there at all.
Mm-hmm.
And, same thing in this financial planning world. 10 years ago, husband did most of the decision making. And now, really, in the last, I would say, 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
most of the new clients that we bring on, and we're really dealing with the wife most of the time. She's the one that has everything organized. She's the one that has all the statements. She knows where everything is. She's, kind of running everything. And then the husband's kind of like, yeah, whatever she said. So we have really seen a change in just the last 20 years of really women taking more of an active role in the financial planning world.
Yep, absolutely. I saw the same thing. I think at the early part of my career, which is dating me a little bit, but yeah, in a lot of cases, you would just be talking to the guy, and it actually seemed a little bit weird. Why are you not both here, right?
Yeah.
Why are you not both involved? But we do think it's important, especially when you're planning together. And of course, if you're married or have a significant other, there's some degree of planning together, right, as far as
Absolutely.
your future. So yeah, it's very important that both people are involved. So there are some reasons for optimism. Again, women are well positioned to pursue financial security for themselves and their families. We've always believed that, but we think increasingly, women's economic clout is there. Women make up about half of the workforce. Now that wasn't always the case a few generations ago. Certainly that shifted. Women account for more than half of all workers in management, professional, and related occupations. Again, not a big surprise to us. Women own millions of businesses. So oftentimes our decision maker, not just in the household, but also among businesses, from small businesses all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And women earn the majority now of all bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees.
I found that when I was reviewing all this information, I found that really surprising. I don't know why, but to think that women are actually earning all of those higher education, or the majority, I should say, of those higher education degrees was surprising to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's different reasons for that. If you really dig into the studies, and we've got the footnotes here. But in some cases, what's happening is that they're finding that more men now are not going to college, right? They're just going straight into the workforce. Could be trades or opening up a small business. So yeah, it is interesting. That really has shifted again from the last couple of generations. A college campus looks very different now than it would have, say, a decade or 2 or 3 ago.
Right. And I think it's generational, who were we raised by? We
Right.
were raised by, our parents that are like, women can do, what they want to do. You go to college, you do your thing, I know my dad's on the chat, I think, and he'll say, oh yeah, that's how I raised Sarah. You do it for yourself and you get that degree and you get that career and stuff. So a lot of it's generational. And I've actually heard that there's going to be a shift back now to more women staying at home, taking care of families so we'll see if that actually happens, but I've heard that.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. So certainly there are different challenges that come with that as well. That are unique to women. Again, these are generalizations, so they don't apply to everybody, but uniquely that are part of the female side of things. That women have longer life expectancies. We've seen that for forever. I mean, I think in history, women always kind of come out in those statistics at least a few years older than men that they'll live. And you just go to your assisted living facility, nursing home, almost everybody there is a female, right? They live into old age. Women generally earn less income and may have less savings. That's one thing that, again, there's different reasons for that. But one of those is that women are more likely to interrupt their career if they stay home for a while. In some cases, even if it's a year, and certainly 5 years or 10 years, things are changing so rapidly right now, right?
Right. And I think we'll dig into that more. We'll go through each of these slides so we can talk about that more. Yeah,
absolutely. So life expectancies, let's talk about that. Women on average live about 5 years longer than men. Again, that's not a big surprise. If you go to your local assisted living or nursing home facility, retirement dollars will need to stretch further, meaning that it's actually more expensive for women. In other words, if you're trying to attach a dollar amount to retirement planning and how much people need to have, women actually need more money because they're probably going to live longer. More likely to need long-term care or some other healthcare needs. Maybe it's home health care. It may not be a facility, but it may be aging in the home. And certainly married women likely to have sole responsibility for financial decisions at some point, right? If the husband passes away, say if it's a married couple, well, eventually, right, the woman's going to end up with the money or the decisions around it.
Right. And it's really important to verify things and stay in tune with if your husband or your spouse is primarily that financial planner and that that key role. Really, really important to verify benefits. I just think of a personal story that I have when Josh was saying, longer life expectancy. My grandma is actually, or was however you want to say that, 15 years younger than my grandpa. And so they had, unfortunately didn't have a financial advisor like, Josh and Keystone to plan out that age gap, but, he had VA benefits that was primarily their entire income. And did not realize that when he passed, that benefit was going away. And come to find out, he was about 1 year shy of hitting the 10-year requirement to then have it pass on to a spouse. And so she lost all of that income, which was a huge upset in her world. And now her family, we've all had to step in primarily to figure out what's grandma going to do.
Right.
And so I think it's really important to verify any sort of benefits that either spouse has, that those will carry on after that person passes. And how much is it a reduced benefit, anything like that? Because sometimes you might think that that's the way it's going to work, and then it takes a left turn and it's not that way. So definitely important to know what's going on with the other spouse's stuff, and will it carry on?
Yep, absolutely. And just asking questions, right, on both sides of things, because who knows, maybe that could have gotten uncovered at some point, or at least could have been planned for, but you don't
it would have been planned for. Right. There would have been some sort of source.
Absolutely. So so that's pretty important. Thanks for sharing that. So women generally earn less. Again, there's different reasons for that, and we're not here to debate that, but a big part of that, I think, is being out of the workforce for periods of time. With the case of people that have kids, that can be a big interruption to that, and
Right.
trying to play catch up in other words.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, caregiving is a, a big thing for women. I
Mhm.
mean, whether it's aging parents or your own kids, from my own personal experience, I was like drive, 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 career, career, career. And then all of a sudden I have a baby 3 years ago and I'm like, I'm gonna miss out on her childhood. And so then now I'm, balancing career and kids. And, some women choose to just take a complete step out. And then that's a challenge because now you come back 5, 10 years later, at least in this industry, laws have changed, technology's changed, and you feel like you're trying to play catch up. So that's a big challenge that we have to account for in the planning world.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that impacts a lot of things, with savings, with Social Security, kind of those lost dollars for whatever reason,
Retirement,
right? Yeah,
contributions to retirement
absolutely.
plans when you're not working, there are ways to still contribute. Even though you don't have a 401k currently, there's spousal, things, or there's your own, we'll get into that later with the financial planning
Yeah.
side of things, but
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then, vulnerability, right? There could be other things that end up happening, right? There could be a job loss. Dealt with that a lot of clients over the years have dealt with unexpected job losses,
right,
divorced, single parenthood, illness, loss of a spouse. There's a lot of different things that could happen. Certainly that, like your grandma, right? That have a massive impact on planning. And
right,
so that's one of the benefits of working with a financial planner, to toot our horn a little bit, but working with somebody that can kind of help watch out for those things, to understand the benefits and things that people have at their disposal or that they need to plan for.
right, and be that steady Eddie that's, no matter who's there in the family, whether it's kids, spouse, whatever, it's that financial planning firm that knows what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So women are more likely to take career breaks for caregiving. Again, lost income, employee benefits. That can make a big difference, especially when it's employers that have longevity benefits, with time off and 401k and pensions, things like that.
Yeah, Social Security impacts with losing that income for those years.
Mhm.
That impacts Social Security.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And other types of benefits, right? It
Yeah.
could be other types of government benefits too that could be impacted. Again, divorce, losing a job, difficulty finding another job in our industry, just using that as an example. Again, if somebody was out for 5 or 10 years, any of us, right?
Right.
It would be hard to jump back in because you kind of missed out on that lost knowledge, right? And experience and technology, all those things that kind of come into that. So, and then flexible schedules can impact salary and career advancement. Meaning, again, somebody might come back and they might not come back full time, right?
Right.
It could be that they come back on a part time basis, which maybe
Or work
works
from
for
home only.
yeah, works for their family, but it could impact other things.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So the other side of things too is women may invest more conservatively. Studies have shown that actually that on average, women tend to have a lower risk tolerance, which that's the industry jargon that we use is risk tolerance or risk number. And there's different reasons for that again, but that is what we find as well is on average, average woman may go more conservative. There's nothing wrong with that, but it also could impact the size of your retirement plan over the
Right,
years. You may
right.
not grow as much. And so your retirement nest egg may not be there. Inflation, right?
Yeah, or women tend to, and I know just in our personal
Mhm.
situation, I tend to say, well, I want that to sit in cash. Like it needs to be in cash because that's safe. And Josh's like, no, we need to invest that. So it's just that, having that sense of security that, well, it's sitting in cash, but then, is that the smartest thing to do? No. But risk wise, it's like, yeah, but it's in cash.
Yeah.
It's
So
there.
yeah, we're a good balance for each other,
Right.
right? So there are some compromises that come
Right.
into this stuff. Oftentimes you end up in a better place. But because of that, it's just something to be keeping in mind, that you need to be looking at appropriate assumptions, right? As far as
Right.
what growth rate are you probably going to get based off of history? Are we accounting for inflation? And then certainly no risk, no reward. So if somebody just left all their money in cash forever, and we don't advise that for most people because it's going to be hard to keep track with inflation. It's important to really spend the time and educate yourself on different investment options and how those are going to behave during different markets.
Right.
So there's no one size fits all. Certainly every situation is different. Every dynamic is different when we sit down with clients, and that's why it's fun for us, right?
Right.
Every family is different. You're going to come in with a different set of family dynamics and incomes and benefits and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, and I think,
yeah.
Josh is gonna go into, more of the meat and potatoes on things that you can do financially, but, just if I could say that, it's okay
Mhm.
to let your spouse do everything.
Mhm.
Totally fine. Everybody's got that dynamic where somebody kind of takes charge, whether
Yep.
it's husband, wife, whatever. But just really important to stay in tune, stay in check, at least attend the meetings with your financial advisor, know where things are.
Right.
We've had,
Absolutely.
if you want to share, we've had, clients that really don't know where anything is, and that can be devastating when they pass.
Yeah, it could be pretty tough. And we help them catch up, certainly,
Right.
right? But
It
yeah,
takes time.
circumstances maybe where one spouse took the lead. And I say one spouse just because these days we do find it's
Both.
it
Yeah.
is about half and half now as far as who takes the lead, whether it's the wife or the husband. And but if that other person is just completely left in the dark, maybe by their own choosing, right? They might just say, I'm not interested. That's oftentimes what we're finding is that they're
Right.
just like, not interested. I know you got it. But then if that spouse, that decision maker, the one who's been managing it, when they pass away, now it's hard to play catch up and get organized
Right.
and certainly figure out what do we do planning to go forward.
Right. And we've seen it, the spectrum on both sides where it's been a spouse passes and the other spouse doesn't even know how to pay the bills.
Mhm.
I mean, doesn't know
Yeah.
how to pay the electric bill, doesn't know how, and obviously we helped them through that. They, came in here every 2 weeks for about a year
Mhm.
just to get everything figured out. But, just, yeah, at least have the basics. If the other person's doing it, great. But have, like we said, a financial advisor that can carry that through or something. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, now you can get into the
Yeah,
meat and
yeah,
potatoes.
absolutely. And just getting organized. That's a lot
Yeah.
of the value of working with any certified financial planner is going to be that that's one of the fundamental things they're going to do at the beginning is help you get organized, also help you get on the same page too. If you are planning with a spouse or planning with a significant other, make sure that you're on the same page and you may not always agree, and that's okay. But sometimes people get stuck, and that conversation really can kind of facilitate some of those decisions.
Right.
So, from a financial planning perspective, we believe financial planning is for everybody. It doesn't matter how low or higher income your is. It doesn't matter how complicated or uncomplicated your tax situation is. There's a lot of things that everybody really should be looking at. Whether you're a man, woman, whatever your situation, there are 6 things that you can do, and we're going to dig into the details on these. Number one, take control of your money, like we just talked about. Have some involvement. You never want to just have completely hand off all decision making and knowledge and everything like that.
Yeah.
There at least needs to be a high level understanding of the planning and where is the money and the strategy and so
Where are
forth.
the passwords?
Yeah, exactly. Where are the passwords?
Where are the
Yeah,
credentials to get in?
yeah. What's the combination to the safe?
Right.
Whatever it is, right? That you're organizing your stuff. It's important to at least have a high level view of that. So taking control. Nobody cares about your stuff as much as you do or should anyway. So make sure that you are involved, even if you are working with a financial planner. Become a more knowledgeable investor. Again, there may be varying degrees of how much you want to know. We've got some clients that are 30,000-foot people that they just want to know, all right, what's the bottom line? What are the results?
When can I retire?
Yeah, when can I retire? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to run out of money? The big questions that we tend to get. We've got other clients and we've got a lot of engineers too, right? And that's fine. We've got engineers and doctors and people that many of them want to know all the
How.
details, right?
They want the
All the
how.
how. So that's fine too. But make sure you at least understand things from a high level. Never just hand over all decision making and stuff on your circumstances. Advocate for yourself in the workplace. We'll dig into that. Planning for retirement, protecting your income and assets, and then creating an estate plan. And not the most fun thing to think about, but it's important because there's no estate planning that can be done after you die. So it's important to make some of those decisions and have people communicated with before you get to that point. So number one, taking control of your money, realizing that ultimately you are responsible, taking responsibility, even if it's delegating. It could be that you're delegating certain things to other professionals, attorneys, trust officers, financial planners, investment advisors. people that you're trusting in your team. And we think that's a good thing. We think it's good to have a team of people that you can trust, but make sure that you still are involved and know that ultimately you've got veto power.
Right.
It's your decision ultimately. So as financial planners, it's our job to guide you. It's not our job to make your decisions for you. So just making sure that you're being responsible, not from an ethical standpoint, but responsible from a, hey, I'm kind of in the driver's seat. I know this is going to happen because it's my future, and I'm the one that's taking charge and hiring people to do that. Number two, knowing your cash flow. We spend a lot of time on cash flow. We like cash flow as opposed to the word budgeting. Like nobody likes the term budget.
No.
It usually means I can't spend money. But cash flow, understand where your money is going. Just having some understanding of what's hitting the checking account, where the money is going, how is it going out, and are we spending more than we are making? Is it kind of going the other direction, and we're building wealth? So having at least a basic understanding of cash flow, where all the money is. So again, positive cash flow, budgeting, managing debt, living within means, and then creating an emergency fund is also critical. Keeping enough money in cash.
How
You
much do you
mentioned
recommend
that.
usually?
Usually 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in cash. We follow a lot of Dave Ramsey's teaching, and the average financial planner would probably also give you that answer: 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. So that's why it's important to understand at least a basic level of how much you're spending, so you can calculate that of how much should be sitting in cash.
I have heard too, for self-employed, it's closer to a year or two, because it can take a self-employed person a lot longer to either turn the business around or choose, am I going to go work for somebody else? Am I going to start a new business? So if you're self-employed, maybe a little bit longer than the 3 to 6.
Yeah, I would agree. Or if you have a really unstable, maybe job situation, or if most of your pay, maybe you work for somebody, but most of your pay is on commission,
Right.
things like that. And of course, using the example of the pandemic, who would have known, right? Nobody could have predicted that. And so many businesses were shut down for a while, and they went to zero income. Many of them had to lay off all their people. Many businesses didn't make it. There were a lot of, especially restaurants, hospitality related businesses that were doing great, and then they weren't. So that's why it's important to have that cash, have a really plentiful cash reserve that you can live off of for a while if things get really bad. Yeah. So creating an emergency fund is critical, just a foundational thing with financial planning. Establishing and maintaining good credit. And that might seem like a given, but that's pretty important, is understanding your own credit situation. And we're not necessarily talking about being irresponsible either. It may not be that you're over borrowing or making late payments. It could just be making sure that you're checking up on your credit score, that you understand, hey, every so often, probably every year, I need to check my credit report just to make sure that bad guys didn't get in there, and apply for credit.
No fraud, anything like that.
Yeah, and stuff like that happens all the time, especially in today's world. We hear horror stories from clients.
If that ever happens, make sure you let your financial advisor know, or bank know. Immediately.
Unfortunately, we get clients all the time that say, I think I was the victim of some identity theft. And then
you can freeze your social security number at certain credit bureaus. Things, there's steps you can take. So.
Yeah, we're big fans of, even though it costs some money, but big fans of LifeLock and other credit protection agencies that'll help you correct your credit too. So, and they'll also help you get a free credit report every year by law. Actually, everybody can get a free credit report. So it's a good idea to check up on that, just to make sure that it may not have been something that you did, but maybe somebody else tried to use your name. And the closer you're doing that to the event that happens, the quicker you are to catch that, more likely it is that you're going to be able to get your money back or have it wiped off of your credit report. So lots of important, just foundational things. Becoming a more knowledgeable investor. And again, there's varying degrees of how interested people are. Some people don't want to know all the details, and that's totally fine. You can certainly hire people like us that can manage investments for you and kind of handle the day-to-day decisions and allocations. But it is important. We can't pick your risk number for you. We can't pick your risk tolerance. You do need to understand, at least on a basic level, how your money is being managed, and also to protect yourself, especially if you're not working with us, you might be working with somebody else. There's all kinds of stuff that happens, right? From Ponzi schemes to just very high risk investments that people didn't know how much risk they were taking. Maybe they had all their money in one area, and then that one area went down. And again, it may not have even been a fraud situation. Think about the pandemic. There were some sectors that were disproportionately impacted, like the hospitality sector. So understanding how your money is actually being managed, asking basic questions and having that high level understanding. So a couple of things to be thinking about. You might be one of those that are just starting out. Few things to think about there, getting basic information, taking some small steps and learning as you go. So it's okay to go slow. It's okay to ask questions and move at your own pace. Just continue to make progress. Don't get stuck because time is a big factor. You want to make sure that you're taking good, effective steps early on as in your career as possible to make sure that things are invested appropriately and you're building your wealth. So eventually you won't have to work if you don't want to anyway. Don't postpone getting started, asking lots of questions. If you're more experienced, aligning your portfolio with your goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Again, a good financial planner can help you with that, asking the right questions.
Yeah, I was going to say the more experienced side, definitely, that's an advisor's role or should be.
Yeah.
So the just starting out, that may look like, like Josh said, being involved in the Dave Ramsey program, reading his books, or maybe, there's a book called The One Page Financial Plan. I think is it Carl Richards?
It is. Yep.
That's a really good one for somebody that's just starting out, things like that. And then the experience side, that's when you need, usually, unless you're one of our engineer clients that can do it themselves, but usually you need some help with that on the more experienced side of this slide.
Yep, absolutely. And we've got a lot of engineers as clients, people that are very educated, and they hire us anyway, simply because it's something that they're not as interested in.
Right.
And also, realizing that, there's probably things that I don't know that, that people can help me uncover about my own situation. And then also planning for continuity, right? If something happens to them, thinking about, but we've got maybe a spouse involved, we've got kids involved, other people that would need somebody kind of helping them through that situation. Right. So that's oftentimes what we're finding is that people will kind of engage us for different reasons, but oftentimes it does come down to these issues. Managing risk is a critical part of that. And, to kind of understand how much risk you're taking in your portfolio. Oftentimes that's what we find, people that are disappointed in their results or frustrated. It's because they didn't know how much risk that they were taking. And so then something happens, right? I think of the early 2000s, the tech wreck, the dot-com bubble. A lot of people were, they had every tech stock in the world, and then all the tech stocks went down 70-80%, right. And many of them ceased to exist. So right. Yeah, it's having your eggs in different baskets, just kind of a foundational principle.
Yeah. I remember a few weeks ago, Jeremy actually, had said a good point that, your risk tolerance is great when the markets are doing great, but the real test of risk tolerance and are you comfortable is when the portfolio start going down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everything's happy when it's going up, but how much risk can you really take when you're watching that number drop?
Right.
Yeah,
so. Exactly. Until there's a pandemic or there's 9/11 right. or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty important because once you're on that airplane, right, and it gets turbulent, you basically have to be along for the ride, right? Yeah. That's people get themselves in trouble. But yeah, that's why we stress test, right? We go through stress tests with people to show them based on what you own. During a bad period of time, it could go down this much, right? So it's very important to kind of know that the upside, but also the downside, and can you live with that downside or not?
But hypothetically, it's very different than when it's actually happening.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, the airplane turbulence.
So then you want to readjust. Readjust maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a pretty important part. We spend a lot of time on that with clients. Understanding what you own, again, with different types of investments, keeping an eye out for investing ideas. We always want to stay diversified, but that also means making sure that we're not closed-minded. We do want to look out for opportunities, and those opportunities might change too, depending on kind of market conditions, where we are in the economic cycle. So that's a lot of what we spend our time on, right, is making sure as we're rebalancing portfolios that we're constantly reevaluating and looking at what people own based off of where we are in the economy. Yeah. Considering taxes, fees, inflation, that's kind of critical because those things can greatly detract from your long-term results. And then making ongoing adjustments. We're not fans of day trading, but we're also not fans of set it and forget it investing, where you just invest your money and you never look at it again. That's not a great idea either. So it's important to have some balance there. And then having a game plan for volatile markets, again, turbulence. Even if you're wonderfully diversified, if you've got a really high risk number, a really high risk tolerance, you could own every stock in the world, but if the entire stock market goes down by 50%, guess what? So are you, right? You're also going to be in that same boat.
Right.
So other items, admitting mistakes and moving on. Of course, people make mistakes. It could be that circumstance where maybe you picked a certain risk level and then later on figure it out. That's not me. It's okay, but don't get stuck. Don't use that as an excuse not to do anything. Sometimes it is worth making an adjustment and changing your portfolio, just learning from it again and moving on. Being risk averse in the right way. Again, the wrong way probably is just leaving all your money in cash forever. Sometimes we see that, but right now it's a little bit more palatable. People are earning a little bit more interest on money just sitting in the bank. The long term, that's not a great solution for most of us anyway. Most of us, didn't get $1 gazillion inheritance or lottery or something like that where we could just let it sit in cash. Inflation is real. We've seen inflation be pretty tough the last couple of years, but long-term inflation is about 3%. So we need to keep up with that. So knowing account numbers and passwords, we talked about that, knowing when to get help, again, whether that's us or some other professional, just make sure whoever you're working with is a fiduciary, making sure that they've got a very high standard as far as the level of advice that they're giving you, because not every advisor is a fiduciary. They're not required, if they're not a fiduciary, they're not required to work in your best interest. And that is what Keystone is. We are a fiduciary at all times. So knowing that it's either us or somebody like us that's always going to be looking out for you and your family and really what you need. So becoming an advocate for yourself in the workplace, that's important for everybody. But studies have actually shown that men are more likely, historically at least, men are more likely to negotiate and go back and ask for pay increases or even a beginning salary. So it makes a big difference. It's the foundation for all your benefits in a lot of cases, your pensions, your 401ks, stock purchase plans, equity awards. There's all kinds of things that kind of come with that. So it's important to be looking at your salary and making sure that it's competitive with, whether you're a man or woman, make sure that it's competitive with the rest of the industry and your experience, years of service, all that stuff. So that's important.
And it doesn't hurt to shoot for the moon and
it doesn't hurt to ask.
Come back with, no, this is more what will work for us. That's great.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So not being afraid to do that research and do it in an educated way. Right. So you've already kind of got that information to be able to take to them. Speaking up on accomplishments, tooting your horn, it's important, especially if you work for a big company. Sometimes you can get lost a little bit, right? Making sure that you're standing up for yourself, right? And say, hey, I did this, making sure that people know about that, because those things can make a big difference when it comes to, who gets the bonuses, who gets the promotions, who gets the equity awards, making sure that you're advocating for yourself on that. And then asking for flexibility, certainly, especially we were talking about parenting, so forth, or even work from home situations, asking for what you need, not being afraid to do that.
Right. Flexibility is huge. I think, COVID kind of taught us that we can do our jobs, from home. Most of our jobs, we can do it from home. We can have that flexibility. So hopefully most workplaces have kind of adopted that. But, right now I have Cameron, our daughter, in the next room.
Right. And
that's what we had to do today. So it's, and then putting on a webinar or doing my work at my desk and taking care of her and stuff. That's just kind of that's a norm for women or parents. Usually it seems like it's women that more take that charge of, hey, kids got to come with to work. That's mom's role. So, making sure that your workplace supports that, I think is a big benefit.
Yep, absolutely.
And there are places that do. So if you don't have one that does, keep looking.
Yeah. Well, especially with the 3.5% unemployment rate
right
now, things like this. That's what we're finding. A lot of employers are more likely to be flexible, right? If people need to leave, for their kids' program or whatever. Right. More flexibility maybe than there used to be. So again, job flexibility, telecommuting, we're seeing that telecommuting is kind of an old term now, but
Work from
work from home, right? Or at least on a partial basis. Flexible hours, part-time work, growth trend, and part-time work I'll touch on, because in some cases that may work at the end of your career. We're finding that some clients, they don't really want to fully retire, but it could be they want to kind of phase themselves out.
Semi-retire, yeah.
Yep, semi-retire. A lot more employers we're finding are willing to do that because they don't want to lose the person completely.
right,
Yeah, because of their experience. And certainly looking at growth trends, planning for retirement. This is important because the sooner you start, and pretty much every client we talk to, when they first start working with us, say, I wish I would have talked to you guys earlier. I wish I would have started earlier. And you can see from the numbers here, compound interest makes a difference. And this is using even what I think isn't a very good long-term rate of return. It's only 6% rate of return. You can, if your risk number is higher than that, let's just say that you're more likely to get a higher return than that over time. But if you start saving early, say when you're 20, that makes a big difference.
right.
And at the beginning of your career, that's one thing that I'd encourage, especially for people who are first starting out in their careers, is sign up for the 401k right away. Say if they offer that at work, sign up for the 401k or any other kinds of savings benefits right away and not
Right.
waiting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at that slide, even just saving 2,000 per year,
Mhm.
starting at 20 years old, I mean, that's not a whole lot.
Right.
I probably, could spend that in coffee.
Yeah, I know. And it's $500,000 almost that the person would have accumulated
Right,
over
by
the
the time
years.
you retire.
Yeah, and again, with higher growth rates, say if you're able to earn an 8% rate of return or a 10% rate of return over that period of time,
Right,
would be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Magic formula, if you use the rule of 72, says that if we divide any rate of return into 72, it'll tell us how many years that it'll take to double that money. So again, if you earn a 10% rate of return divided into 72, that's every 7.2 years, your money would be doubling. So that makes a big difference. Definitely makes a big difference versus lower rates of return. It would take a lot longer. So a lot of people think that these numbers are out of reach for millions of dollars. You'd have to make this major sacrifice, but if you start early, it's probably money that you're not going to miss anyway if it's just deducted from your paycheck. So important to think about. Save as much as you can. Of course, you're not going to save half of your money probably, but a good rule of thumb is that you start out with about 15% of your pay is being pulled aside and put away for, I'll just call it the future. Sometimes we call that retirement, but 15% is a good starting point. You might find that I can't swing that right now, and that's fine. Start with something, start with 1%, 2% of your pay. And then I would just encourage you to gradually move that up over time, because it's probably not going to be money missed if you do it that small of an increment, say 1 to 2 to 3 to 4%. Sooner or later, especially if you're doing it as you get raises too, then you really won't miss it. That's what we've been finding from other clients. They'll use that strategy that when they get a raise, basically they'll just automatically, let's take that. If I get a 3% raise,
as if it didn't actually happen.
put that 3% into the 401k or retirement plan. Yeah. So do it automatically. Put yourself first. We use the term pay yourself first. That means that money's pulled right aside, goes into your retirement plan before you get your hands on it. I think for all of us, if the money hits the checking account, it's kind of fair game, right? If it's in there, it's probably going to get spent. So if it's pulled out before that, before you even see it, you probably won't even notice. 401k, 403b, 457, all the alphabet soup of retirement plans. More than likely your retirement plan at work will be your best first starting point because of matching contributions. So definitely take a look at that. Consider IRAs. Those are individual retirement accounts. There are different types of IRAs. And again, that gets beyond the scope maybe of today as much, but we do really, really like Roth, especially for people who have a lot of time, especially for maybe people just starting out in their careers. That could be a huge advantage because of tax-free growth that you can get, as opposed to having to pay the taxes later on a traditional 401k or retirement plan. So you might want to look into that.
Some of those you have to have earned income.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
not, if you're not currently working, say you're staying at home with kids or something, you be careful, because some of them you can't, you'd be penalized if you do contribute.
Yeah, and there's income limits too.
Right.
Yeah, once you make over certain amounts, then you're not eligible. So it's really important in all this stuff to understand the rules.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's also spousal IRA. So even if you're not working,
Right.
if you are married, it could be that you still can contribute to a plan. And then it could be that you're also self-employed, and self-employed people have a whole different set of
Well, yeah.
retirement plans that are available. So as you can tell, this is a good job security for us because the rules are complicated and they change constantly. So that's what we get a kick out of, keeping track of this stuff. Set a savings goal and keep track of progress. Savings goal again would be automated. Ideally, you just got it automatically pulled aside from your checking account, your 401k. You've just got something pulled out of your paycheck that's automatically saving for whatever you're saving for: college, retirement, paying off the mortgage early. Automated savings tends to work the best because, again, if the money is gone, you're not going to be thinking about it. It's just already set aside and saving for that goal.
Right.
Yep. So lots of good stuff. Again, 15% is a good target for retirement planning, though, for how much you should be putting into your 401k. If you're thinking about retiring early, which could be different for everybody, but I would think really strongly about 20%. 20% is a great target. I can tell you from a lot of our clients that have been clients for years and years and are retired, many of them contributed to their 401k and to a stock purchase plan that their employer offered. And more often was the case that I would find people would put 10% of their money into the 401k, 10% of their money into stock. That built up, and that's why they have what they have today, because they just did that over a long, long period of time. It wasn't necessarily because they got lucky or got a big inheritance or something like that. It was just starting as early as possible and then setting that money aside for yourself instead of spending it all. Planning for retirement. Social Security is the major source of guaranteed lifetime income. I don't know about that word guarantee.
I know, yeah.
For those of you who are younger, especially, you might be thinking pretty skeptically about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, more than likely, will it go away?
Mhm.
Probably not, but will there be changes to it?
Mhm.
Probably.
Yeah, almost
Yeah.
certainly. Yep. Anytime soon? Probably not, because that's not a winning campaign slogan that I'm going to mess with Social Security. You're probably not going to win. So the can keeps getting kicked down the road. But as it stands right now, I think it's 2033 or 2034. As it stands right now, if there aren't any changes to the program, every recipient will get a 20% deduction or reduction in their benefit. And because about 30% of the population that's retired right now, that's all they have is Social Security. Right. They have no savings, no retirement plans, anything like that. That would put a lot of people into poverty. Right.
Social Security used to be your retirement plan.
Right. That was kind of it. That maybe a company pension, but now most people don't have pensions. And again, a lot of our younger clients are saying, don't even include that as far as an assumption in my retirement planning. So, but you still need to manage it, right? Say if you're there, you're going to be applying for benefits. It's still something you've got to manage, and you want to use these things to your advantage, right? You definitely don't want to leave money on the table. So there's a lot of different benefits there. We do whole seminars on this, on Social Security benefits, but it provides retirement benefits, disability, survivor benefits, also divorce spouse benefits even. So it's important to kind of look at your individual circumstances to see what you're eligible for. And it never hurts to ask again. It never hurts to check with Social Security directly, especially if you've been married before. Even whether you've been divorced, the spouse has passed away, it's important to recognize that you might have some eligibility off of their
spousal benefits,
their record.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So your benefit is based on the number of years that you've worked, but it also could be off of spouses. Also matters what your earnings were. Go to ssa.gov, which I always think is funny because it's ass backwards. Just saying. or you can go to socialsecurity.gov. So now you'll remember, right? ssa.gov. Because there is a way that you can log into that. You can create your own profile. At the very least, you want to do that, right? Create your own profile, get in. You can pull your benefit statement.
They make you apply for benefits that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you probably could go in.
At some point.
Yeah, you probably could go in and talk to somebody, but yeah, I think they say no, go to the website.
They point you towards the website nowadays.
Yeah, so it's important that you look at your own record and make sure that it's accurate too. Sometimes we've heard that people, they kind of screw up, or that maybe a former employer screwed up their reporting or withholding or something like that. So, and it also can matter too, if you've worked for any entities like a railroad plan, or if you've been a teacher that didn't pay into Social Security,
Government.
there's whole other, things that you would be eligible for that could impact your benefits. One thing to be aware of is the earlier you start collecting Social Security, the less you get. So the longer you wait, the more you get up until age 70, and it never goes up after that point. So
Right.
definitely want to apply for benefits if you haven't already by the time you hit 70.
Right. And do you typically find that it's better to pull from other, 401ks, IRAs, let's say from 62 to 69 and let
Mhm.
that grow? Or is that kind of,
That's a great question. We get that question a lot, actually. And we have an analysis tool that we can run those numbers for you because it's so individual. It's based off of your earnings history, how old you are, how long you think you're going to live. Again, if you've been married ever, then that kind of throws another challenge into it, right? Not that it's bad. It could be that you get more money because you've been married before, or maybe you had a spouse pass away. There are special rules with that as far as survivor benefits, especially if you still have minor children at home. So again, a lot of nuances. Yeah, a lot of nuances. Planning for retirement, other things to think about when you'll retire, that's kind of critical, is the time factor, retirement expenses, starting to estimate what you think you're going to be spending. Dealing with any shortfall, again, it's not our job to make your decisions for you, but to kind of show you the numbers, to work the math, play what if, and let you make the decisions. So if there is a shortfall though, and they say the number one fear of retirees is that they're going to run out of money sometime in their retirement. And sadly, a lot of people do, right? It does happen. But, dealing with any shortfall now, in other words, addressing that if it looks like, hey, if we spent this amount, then we're going to run out of money by the time we're 79. Okay, maybe we want to deal with that, right? Maybe it means that I'm going to work longer, or we're not going to spend as much money, or maybe I'm going to change how my money is invested. Clearly, you want to deal with that as soon as possible, because if we're dealing with a 30-year-old right now, we've got a lot of time to plan, right, for any kind of shortfall in their retirement, versus if you're on the eve of retirement, there are less levers, right, that you're going to be able to throw. So we like to play with numbers, and we like to kind of show you that so you can make good decisions and at least have confidence, right, that I've got a plan that's workable. So yeah, lots of different stuff there. Healthcare expenses, not forgetting about that, because that can be very expensive, especially if you're talking about healthcare expenses before age 65. That's the magic Medicare age for most people. So be thinking about that, especially early retirement. Again, it could be a huge, huge price tag. Longevity issues, certainly with women, that's a factor. Again, we talked about that, about 5 years longer on average, and oftentimes many, many years beyond that. And then distribution options as well, planning on where are we taking your money from in retirement? Where are we going to start pulling from your Roth IRA, your traditional IRA, your taxable investments? Yeah, when do we draw Social Security? When do we draw a company pension? Oftentimes these are decision points. Yeah. So protecting your income and assets, this kind of talks about insurance, but very important, thinking about life insurance, disability insurance, your home and auto insurance, health insurance, long-term care insurance, if you've got it or even eligible for that. And then any trust issues that you've got. It could be that that you're the beneficiary of a trust, or have some other benefits that you need to account for, like if you've got a special needs child, or some other factors that apply with that. And then any business entities, certainly if you own a business or think you're going to inherit a business, in the family or something like that, or a ranch or anything unique like that, just being aware of that and incorporating that into your plans. Which brings us to our last planning area. Maybe not the most fun, again, thinking about dying, but creating an estate plan. So you've got a good plan for both yourself and also for anybody who's going to be depending on maybe your income, right? Or kind of your knowledge, or if you own a business that you've been running, having all that kind of planned out. So, people are taken care of in the end.
Yeah, I would say the estate planning world seems to be the most forgotten, and it has the biggest impact when it is.
Yeah.
Because there's really not a whole lot you can do after somebody's passed away.
Yeah.
But people always kind of go, well, that's for, the old people or something like that. And it's like the most forgotten, but the highest impact that it's forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And again, just using your grandma as an example, that's part of estate planning is understanding
Right.
when somebody passes away, kind of what happens to different income streams,
Right.
assets and things. That's what you're trying to map out and be thoughtful about, at least. You can't control everything, right? And you certainly can't control the government and rules changing and all that stuff, but at least having awareness of it so you can plan.
Right. We have a family member that currently, is trying to get her dad to take his paper stock certificates and do something with them. And, just from our experience, we're like, you have to get that done before he passes away because he's in his late 90s and it could, he's healthy, but it could, anything can happen. Because just from our experience, it is terrible to deal with paper
Yeah,
stock
it's a pain in the
certificates
butt.
after somebody has passed.
Yeah,
It can be a month, 2-month process. So, explaining to her that, hey, we can put them in a brokerage account, or not we, because we're not their financial advisor, but your financial advisor can put those in a brokerage account. So, they don't have to be sold because he doesn't want them sold. They're very sentimental. So, just things that have to be done before somebody passes, or it can
Mhm.
create a nightmare, really.
Yeah, and estate planning usually deals with a couple different things. Incapacitation, it's not necessarily dying. Sometimes it's incapacitation, which there you're thinking about things like a living will, that's like an end of life directive typically, healthcare proxy, DNR order, power of attorney, living trust. These are all things that would need to be kind of taken care of again before you're
Yes.
incapacitated. Otherwise, you're going to a judge, right? Your family's going to a judge to try to get somebody to
Yeah,
put these things into place.
and stacks of
Yeah.
paperwork. And, one common misconception that I hear a lot is people say, well, I have power of attorney.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
people don't realize that power of attorney ceases at death.
Mhm.
So as soon as that
Yep.
person dies,
Yep.
that power of attorney means nothing.
Yeah, it's true.
And so that's, I think, power of attorney is thrown around like, oh, I have, complete control over
Right,
what's
and
going
they
to
walk
happen,
into the
but
bank and yeah,
not
that
necessarily.
doesn't
So
help.
that's gone once they pass away.
Right. Yep, definitely. And then, of course, death issues, they were thinking about a will, or sometimes known as a last will and testament is the official term for that. So not to be confused with a living will. Living will is an end of life directive. But will more or less is your letter to the probate court judge, to say, here's what I want to have happen. One thing that not to ignore here is that sometimes people think it's just about the money, but it can deal with your stuff, like your personal possessions. Also, it's the place that you would name who's going to take care of your minor children, right? If you've got a child that's not an adult, that's where you would say they're supposed to be taken care of by this family member, or this family member is supposed to help them manage their money until they reach legal age. So it's important to recognize it if you say, well, I'm only 32 or whatever, right? And I've got a long time until I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you may not, right? Number one, and number two, it's not just about the money. It's also
Yeah.
about caregiving.
And you'd hope that, let's say husband and wife pass away together, they're on a trip or something, a car accident, something like that, you would naturally think, well, grandparents or aunts and uncles or whatever, but it's a legal process.
Yeah.
And so I've actually known families where husband and wife have passed away and the kids are technically a ward of the state.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
grandparents now
temporarily.
have to deal with the legal battle of trying to get those kids back
Yeah.
into their possession, even though they're the next of kin, right?
Yeah.
They're the family. You would think, well, duh, that should just happen. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Years ago, there
So you
was
want to designate that.
Yeah, we saw, were two sets of grandparents, sad, two sets of grandparents were fighting over which set of grandparents was going to care for the grandchildren,
Yeah.
which, terrible, having to go to court and, the emotional turmoil that
Yeah.
would put on the family. So this isn't just about the money. This is also about emotions and pain in the butt factor, with stock certificates and all these things.
Yeah.
So just be thinking about that.
Yep.
Again, death, different things that you have to think about, having a will, testamentary trust, those are things that would happen or maybe be included in the will that would apply after you pass away. Not having a will, that means that you follow your state. Your state has what's called an intestacy law. That means that they kind of have a plan for you, in other words. And for us, if you don't have a will, they have a plan for you, and you may not like that plan.
Right.
So make sure that you're aware of that.
Yeah. And another misconception I just like to share, things that I've had experience with is
Yeah.
if you designate beneficiaries on your accounts,
Mhm.
that actually supersedes what you've written in your will.
It's true.
So some people think, well, I wrote this will up, and so yeah, I might have an account over here that has so and so's beneficiary and that one. it's actually the opposite of what you think. Most people think the will would take over and direct everything. That's not the case.
Yeah.
So the designations that you've made on each of, like, say your 401k or your life insurance or your this or your that, those are going to be what's, taken into
That's what
account, not your
applies.
will. So make sure that they match up.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And of course, in all this stuff, you consult with your estate planning attorney. We're not legal advisors, but we are financial planners, and we've just seen a lot of
Seen a lot of
situations.
situations.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of things that completely unintentional, right?
Right.
But yeah, cases where people get disinherited, or the wrong family members get the money because somebody thought, well, I changed the will, and all that stuff, right? So
Right.
yeah, having a good financial planner, we can certainly help uncover that stuff. So lots of different things that apply here. Again, there are lots of different life circumstances, job losses, unplanned pregnancies, divorce, illness, financial help for adult children. That happens a lot. Caring for aging parents happens a ton. We're seeing that many of our clients are kind of dealing with that, and caring. Sometimes it's not even the physical care, but it's helping them pay their bills and helping them deal with their stuff, helping them move out of a home that they've been in for 50 years and dealing with their possessions. And certainly losing the spouse is a big financial impact on people's lives, as well as an emotional one. So ultimately, it's about you, and whether you're male, you're female, it's financial planning is for everybody. But there are some unique issues that do come into play with our female clients, and hopefully this has helped uncover some of those things. This probably didn't make you an expert on any of these topic areas, but that's okay. It's a starting point, at least an awareness of some of the different areas that you'll need to be looking at in your own situation. We have this piece that we've created, and we're welcoming you to reach out to us just at communications@keystonefinancial.com. If you'd like a copy of this is our Making the Complex Simple piece. This is a great shareable piece as well. We can send it to you in a nice PDF, but
It's
sometimes
also
we
on
get
our
that.
website too.
Yeah, it's on the website. It's a good piece that, and again, tooting our horn, but we created it so people would have some idea of these are the things, these are kind of the main things, in other words, that we help people with, and what differentiates a comprehensive financial planner, a true fiduciary, versus somebody maybe who's more of a broker or insurance agent or something like that.
Right.
Just a different standard.
And if we're not the ones helping, we've kind of formatted it with the check boxes, that at some point we need to discuss all these things.
Right.
It might not be now, it might be 20 years from now, but at some point, all these boxes need to get checked or at least addressed.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
it's kind of a nice handout you can take with you and check the box.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So even if you're doing this yourself for right now, when we find a lot of our new clients were doing it themselves before, they've just kind of reached a point of complexity and so forth that they say, you know what, I really want help now. But yeah, certainly a good planning tool for yourself. But yeah, we're welcoming you to reach out to us, though. If you'd like a copy of it, we'll send you a copy. So this is our contact information. We've got my information, Jeremy's. As you can imagine, if we had Sarah's on here, it would say Sarah@KeystoneFinancial.com as well.
You're more than welcome to email.
Yes. Yeah. We've got a great team. As you can see, we have lots of shining faces up here that love serving you and your family. We love the relationship part of this business, and certainly want to be able to help you in any way we can. With that, we've had a lot of stuff we tried to cover, but are there any questions or comments that anybody has? We'll take a look at the queue here to see if there's anything out there. One thing you're certainly welcome to do after the fact, sometimes we'll get somebody who wants to ask a question afterwards, or maybe just their own kind of personal situation. You can just email us directly. That's fine too. And either we'll reply back to you, or we can hop on the phone on a call. So again, Josh@KeystoneFinancial.com, Jeremy@KeystoneFinancial.com, or you can go communications@KeystoneFinancial.com. I don't see any questions in the queue for right now, but again, thank you for being here. Thanks for taking your time. If you've been here live, if you're watching after the fact on Facebook or on our YouTube channel,
look at all those women on our team.
Yeah, look at all those things. We're outnumbered, right? So we're a female-centric firm. So, but yeah, we love working with all of you. Certainly appreciate the trust that you've got in us, and many questions, reach out to us.
Thank you very much.
All right. And one last slide for those of you who are still with us.
From the compliance
the compliance department, right? Was written to tell you that everything we just talked about is just our own opinions and not considered advice, legal advice, tax advice, anything like that. So certainly want to visit about your own situation with any applicable people, including us, from a financial planning perspective. I think that's it.
That's it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a great week. God bless.